This is the continual evolution of the East Coast beat. In my life, there have been many times where there have been lines that I have had to cross. Many times of doubt, but with persistence comes victory. When I was a child, times would come when I would have to make a stand, to speak my mind, to push for my peace. But I felt that I was in sync with the eternal flow. As a young boy still on a path to becoming a wise old man, what can I say? At 51, I am what I am. I still dream as though I were 20, and I feel the dull pain of angst of the unknown tomorrows. And sometimes, in between laughter and tears, I find myself. When I was young, I didn't really have too much of an idea of a certain identity, I guess you could say. I think maybe the first identity that I really wanted was my dad took me to go watch Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I can't remember how old I was, but I was in elementary school. And I didn't know about steroids or testosterone replacement therapy. I didn't know about any of that. And I remember we went and watched this three-pack of movies at this theater. They used to play these 24-hour theater would play movies all day, and they would play three movies all day. So we went and watched them three movies one time, and then after like 6 hours, we left. But one of the movies was Commando. And Commando, I mean, it was just, the idea that a soldier could be so above. I mean, he must have killed 100 men, 50 different ways. I mean, that was the first time I had seen a man be resourceful. You know what I'm saying? In such a way, like, um, he could fly a helicopter. He could escape the enemy. He did everything he had to do to get the mission accomplished. And as a young man, that sunk in with me. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I want to be someone that can get the mission accomplished. So, and then, like I said, another movie that guided me towards joining the military. I saw Red Dawn, the original Red Dawn with Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey. And in the movie, it was just a bunch of high school football kids and their brother that, whose dad used to take them hunting, and that's how they got away from the Russian military. And then they got lucky enough that, a senior officer ends up coming into their group, and he starts telling them how to fight as military. And like I said, that was another thing because I was young, and I didn't. I'm not a naturally overtly aggressive guy. I can get aggressive, but I'm not like always standing straight up with my shoulders back. I don't care if you look at my girl, you know what I'm saying? If you want to disrespect my shoes, my car, my haircut, I'm probably not gonna hit you over that, you know what I'm saying? Now, can I guarantee that I won't? I don't know. And can I guarantee that I'm not going to say something back that's going to make you look like shit if you don't take the first punch? If you start shit with me like that, I mean, even half crippled, I still find myself, speaking. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, if you were going to be disrespectful enough to me, I would definitely say something back, particularly in front of other people, to where you would have to either do something or that was it. There would Whatever happened after that, there was no fight, because when the fight happened, you walked away. And you can claim that you did it, silently and with the upper hand. Go ahead if that's what it makes you feel. If that's what it takes to make you feel your way. You just go ahead then. Yeah, you won. Go ahead. You started the fight and you won it. Without throwing a single punch. Good job, guy. You know what I'm saying? So, but the whole thing is, like I said, in that situation, what was the realness? I mean, okay, someone, like, let's say I have a car and someone says, "Oh, my car is faster." Okay. Well, I didn't buy the fastest car. I'm not into the fastest car. I don't want to kill myself going down the highway. I mean, like, if someone offered me, "Hey, would you like to drive a, 959 or a 911 Carrera, you know what I'm saying, turbocharged Porsche?" Back in the day, I would have definitely have loved to, and I probably would have pushed it so far that I probably would have flew off the road. But nowadays, I can't. I'm not really into that right now. But the whole thing is, back in the days, yeah, if we're talking, fast car, I know what a fast car is. You know what I'm saying? I knew what a Lamborghini was. I knew what a 19 79 459, like, I knew that there were fast cars, and I knew that they cost money. So in the end, you're just insulting me either because of my lack of taste or my lack of money. Yeah, like I said, that's a great way to live your life. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there are people who are literally doing horrible shit every day. Backbreaking, soul ending work. There are people that are selling faulty products. There are people that are straight up lying for money. All these people are getting so they can get by every day. you know, and that's how society is. You know what I'm saying? It's like there are people that will do anything they have to do to get by every day. So I try to be thankful for my life because I don't have to do those things to get by. And so I don't really ask for more money. I get a certain amount of money in disability, and like I said, I'm in a housing program, and I volunteer. Not as much as I used to because crowd got rougher. I mean, there was a time when I was like one of the youngest guys at the facility, and even it seems like the crazy guys that would come in, they all seem to be older, so I could handle them. But now that I'm 51, a lot of the guys are 22, 24 years old, and they blatantly disrespect the rules. They blatantly do this and that. And one time somebody asked me, "Hey, are these guys annoying to you?" And I told everybody, "Yeah, it's always the same guys with the same stupid shit." You know what I'm saying? And "Oh, well, I'll catch you outside." Well, half crippled, I was still waiting outside. I got outside before he did. I waited so long, I sat down. You know what I'm saying? So but the whole purpose of today's conversation was to experience your life as honestly as you can. Like I said, I'm not a violent person, but I've trained MMA. I played football. I've trained my body. I've been punched in the face. I've been kicked in I've been choked unconscious. Not unconscious, but I've been choked. Well, yeah, I've been choked unconscious. And I've been all these things so that I could be a better fighter, because they always told me that if you knew how to fight, you knew you would never have to. And one thing I can say at 51 is I've very rarely had to use any of my martial arts skills. I've never really, you know, I have an attitude, and the attitude is because I can back it up. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not a violent person. And like I said in this life, be honest. So, like I said, when I was a kid, my dad took me to the movies, and I saw Commando, and then I saw Red Dawn, and then I saw a couple other movies. So I joined the army. And the army to me was, my dad was in the army, but the whole thing is, to me, it was like the army, the navy. I just didn't want to be on a boat, but I wanted to see the world. I wanted to live different places. I wanted to wake up, I wanted to get more stuff done before 9 a.m. than most people would get done all day. Like, that didn't bother me. I had no problem with the idea of waking up before the sun rose. Like, that didn't bother me. And working until the sun went down, that didn't bother me. And doing all that, in service, that didn't bother me. That was great. I loved it. I loved the outdoors. I loved when we got to go out to the field. You know what I'm saying? It was good times for me. But and like I said, I tell people all the time, the entire time I was in the army, I felt like I was high. Now that, since getting out of the military, and, smoking weed, and, other things, it's like, I have an idea of what the sensation of being high is. And that's the whole thing. I was high when I was in the army, just off of being in the army. That's why today there were, this brother and his sister on the bus. They were coming back. He said she was in the ninth grade. I don't know what his sister was in, but he was in the ninth grade. He sat next to me. So he was in the ninth grade, and I asked him what he wanted to do, and he told me he wanted to be a mortician. And I was telling him, that's cool, freaky shit, it's like, I saw a movie once where this guy started seeing him come to life, and I was like, I can't do that. But, like I said, I told him that's cool, because I asked him, he said he was in the ninth grade. I said, do you have any idea what you want to do after high school? Because, I tell kids I joined the army, you know what I'm saying? It's like I got to see, two couple of states because of it. Because when I was in training, I got to go up to DC for a day, a day off too, not even like parade or anything. We just went up to DC, walked around, got something to eat. I think I bought a Bob Marley CD up there. Me and some of the guys from Cook School. It's pretty tight. I like DC. I tell you what, some of the anybody that's ever seen some of those old senators' houses, particularly the one down by on the walk between the Washington Memorial and the Capitol building, the reflective pond. There's the senator's house made out of like stone. Oh my God. From what I could see of that, I was like, wow, these guys. That was nice. But yeah, like I said, in your life, try to live it honestly. You know, like I said, I knew I had an issue when I found out I had an issue with my temper. I had to control it, and I have to control it to this day. And there are still people, and they joke about it, like, oh, you never do that, or, and it's like, bro, don't ever tell me what I'd never do. You know what I'm saying? And don't ever think that I would never do anything. you know. But yeah, live life honestly. It's like I said, If someone comes into your life, experience that person. Try to experience that person singularly try to just experience that individual at least once where it's just you and them and maybe nothing too much going on in the background and and like I said, you'll be surprised 20 years later you'll be able to remember that day. All the movie dates, all the dinner dates, all the shopping, all that gets forgotten. But the one time where you were sitting at a table with a cup of coffee and she had a tea and you kept fucking with your lighter because you were so nervous, you'll remember that 20, 30 years later. You know, hey, what can I say? Somewhere in between being a young man into an old wise between being a young boy and an old wise man, here I am at 51. This is what I am. Ex this, ex that, ex high school football player, ex cook, ex this, ex MMA, you know what I'm saying? Now half crippled, arthritic ridden, you know what I'm saying? Um, and it's like because I tell people, I've raised my hand to the air and cursed life. Oh my God. And at the same time, I've fallen so absolutely and beautifully in love with life that I've shed tears. So in between the laughter and the tears, I find myself. Strange places sometimes. Embarrassing sometimes, when you're in public. But like I said, people understand. Most people do. If you're having an honest moment, that's a little too honest for yourself and it's too much, most people will just let it be. You know what I'm saying? And maybe that's what you should do. If you have a different inclination, I don't know. But like I said, I've seen people just break down, start crying. Girls on the buses, with their little getting, probably told from the 17th job applicant, or 17th job interview in the last since she graduated from high school. We're sorry, but you have no experience, and she's taking the bus and dropping off applications everywhere off the bus stop, which is what I tell them to do. Before you get a car, get a job that you can just take the bus to or you can walk to. So you don't need a car just to get your first minimum wage job. Unless you want to be a pizza delivery driver or something like that. But like I said, I tell them all the time, man, if you're lucky enough to get a place that you can walk to, that's great. Keeps you in shape. Plus, like I said, eventually when you're working, if somebody thinks you're cool enough, hey man, let me give you a ride home. Well, before we go home, hey, let's stop by here. You're working, you got a couple extra dollars to go hang out at some burger shack and get onion rings and a soda, you know what I'm saying? But the reality of life is the reality of life. Like I said, um, they told me that I had an antisocial, borderline, narcissistic personality. I didn't look that up for 10, 20 years. And now that I look that up, I'm thinking, okay, some of it makes sense, and I'm an introvert. Some of it makes sense. And I'm a Sigma male. Some of that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? So if all that's pointing to things in me that make sense, then I'm at this point in my life, I'm taking all that in and saying, okay, well then, thank you for enlightening me, and maybe I can do the same for someone else. In this world, try to be as honest as you can about everything. Do whatever you do with your whole heart. Do something that you want that you can do with your whole heart, and you will be blessed 1,000 riches, enough to be a king. I played high school football in Colorado, in a small town where they played our games on the radio. And, I played high school football for 1 year, you know what I'm saying? Because I had arthritis and I didn't want to wear my body out before I went into basic training. But I played football and wrestled just to get into basic training. I got to play soccer for the city, you know what I'm saying? And we even went second in a three-state tournament, you know what I'm saying? Like, but this was after years of just sitting there staring at a wall thinking, I hope it gets better. And then same thing, for a while after Colorado, when I was in Florida before I joined the army and before I got my first job, it was lean times. A lot of staring at walls thinking, man, I hope this gets better. I was still getting up and putting out job applications, but who wants to hire a 17-year-old not, with no work experience that didn't even graduate in the state that he's trying to get a job at? And I kept telling people I'm going to join the army, you know what I'm saying? But I'm too young. So the continual evolution of the East Coast beat. Yeah. Um, if you realize that you have bad habits or, a temper or you're addicted to certain things that, you just are not no-nos, you know what I'm saying? Work on that. That's why we have so much of our life. If it was just about, feeling the sunshine and feeling the rain on our skin, we wouldn't live to be 70, 80, 90 years old. We have time to think and time to realize, okay, well, how much of my life do I live? How much of my life am I really expressing? What do I do every day that might make my living life a dream? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, make my dreams come true in life. How can I live my life to where, you know, it feels like it does in a dream? You know what I'm saying? Um, and like I said, part of that is by doing something that you absolutely love, you know, and would. Fire. Fire. Hush mode activated. Okay, gonna have to cut this one short. The continual evolution of the East Coast beat. Yes, be as honest as you can with your life and try to live the life you want to live. I know some people are gonna make that hard, and I know it's gonna seem impossible, but hold steadfast and pray and do what you have to do to get there, and it'll be enough to make it the rest of the way, you know what I'm saying? The continual evolution of the East Coast beat.